Awesome. Welcome everyone to the Kickoff webinar for the Solar Decathlon 2024 Design Challenge. My name is Taylor Ryan and I am the competition manager for the Solar Decathlon Design Challenge, and I am excited to be your host for today. For this kickoff webinar, we will be going through the high-level structure and overview for the 2024 Design Challenge, including timeline, deliverables, and expectations for competing, as well as hopefully encouraging you to take that leap and submit a team registration for this year's competition. With that, I am joined by several of my colleagues here on the Solar Decathlon organizer team at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or NREL, as well as our director from the U.S. Department of Energy, Holly Jameson-Carr. And with that, if we could go to the next slide. And Holly, I'll let you introduce yourself and provide a welcome for everyone.
Taylor.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. It looks like I fell off the Zoom call right at the perfect time, but I'm back on.
We can see and hear you now.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So glad that you could join us. Thanks for making time today. I am thrilled to welcome people to this new season of Solar Decathlon, and really just excited to get started with another academic year that we hope will include Solar Decathlon for faculty and students on this call. I'll echo Taylor and just hoping that we have a 100% rate of return, that all of you are convinced to join and register for Solar Decathlon this year. This is the first of our conversations with students and faculty. Beyond today, we are always available to answer questions. And we're pretty confident that if you take the leap and decide to participate in Solar Decathlon, you will not regret it. It's really an experience that many folks remember and count as some of the best time spent in their collegiate career. So thanks again for joining, and I'll turn it back over to Taylor to provide lots of details.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly. And we can go to the next slide here. All right, so we are going to start things today with a poll to get to know everyone who's on the call with us today. So you can join this poll by scanning the QR code that you see on the screen here, as well as there's a URL there, pollev.com/nrelcoms, or you can send a response to the poll to 22333 and send NRELComs there. And we will be asking the question, where are you calling in from today? We want to see across the globe where our participants are joining us from today. So we'll give you just a couple moments to log into the poll, and then we can switch over to the responses on the map. Awesome. I see a few from the United States and beyond calling in. Welcome. Okay, I see India on the map. That's great. Canada. Jordan, welcome. We saw Jordan in the chat. Thank you for joining. And this is always a test of our geographical knowledge. So thank you to our international participants for testing that. Iran, thank you for joining. Awesome. And we see some responses coming in from all over the United States, which is great. Awesome. Well, I think we can move on, and thanks for humoring us with that initial poll. It's always great to see Solar Decathlon is such an international competition, and as always, we have international and representation from across the country as well on these webinars. So thank you again for joining us today, and I think we can switch back over to the slides. Awesome, thank you. So to get things started today, we will be going through some high-level overview of the 2024 competition design challenge structure, deadlines, timelines, and everything that you really know to be a successful competitor in the design challenge. If you could go to the next slide. So this graphic here shows a high-level overview of the design challenge competition structure for this year. At the top of the graphic here, you can see a breakdown of the divisions for the design challenge. For this year, we have single-family housing and attached housing for residential building types, and multifamily building and education building for commercial building types. On the lower part of the graphic, you can see the 10 contests that make us a true decathlon. So students in all divisions are expected to compete and innovate across all 10 of our contest areas. If you've been a participant in the past, some of these contests will probably look familiar, like architecture and engineering. And then we have some new contests for this year, including envelope, grid interactivity, and community. And I'll say that the most successful teams in the design challenge, again, really strive to innovate across all 10 contest areas in their project submission. And you can go to the next slide. So for a deeper dive into our divisions for this year's competition, we have single family housing, attached housing, multifamily building, and education building. So if you are registering a team for the 2024 design challenge, you will pick one division to compete in for this year's competition. It's worth mentioning, though, you don't have to have your division fully finalized by the time you submit a team registration next month. You can submit a preliminary division selection for that team registration, and then finalize that division selection by the time of the semifinal submission in February 2024. We also get the question a lot, can one collegiate institution, can my university compete in more than one division? And the answer is absolutely yes, and we encourage that. So theoretically, one school could have one team across each of these 4 divisions, or have up to 4 teams in the 2024 Design Challenge. And the last point I'll make on divisions is that we not only are retrofits allowed, but we also really encourage retrofits across each of these divisions. So students can choose from either a retrofit or a new construction project in any of the 4 divisions for the design challenge. And you can go to the next slide. This slide here provides an overview of the competition timeline for the design challenge. So I'll start on the left-hand side here. We released our rules and competition requirements last month, which really officially kicked off the competition. Moving from there, we have our team registration deadline coming up next month on October 18th at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And again, we encourage everyone on the call today to hopefully submit a team registration for the design challenge. We did want to mention that 5 p.m. Eastern time deadline on October 18th is firm, so you absolutely have to submit a registration before that point to be accepted into the competition. And all students who complete that team registration are accepted as competitors, so there's no down selection at that October 18th deadline. Moving forward from there, we have our first optional deliverable due in the competition on December 5th. This is a 2-page project summary, which is a short summary of your project that conveys the salient points around your design intent. Again, this deliverable is optional. So if your team is planning to compete over, let's say, only one semester starting in January, that's totally okay. You don't have to submit this initial project summary. For those students who do submit that initial project summary, you'll receive initial feedback on your project, including on rules compliance and division formatting. From there in the timeline, we will release an updated version of the rules in January 2024. This is for very minor updates and clarifications as needed. So the expectations for requirements of competing will not change for this updated rules release in January 2024, but you can expect us to make, again, those minor clarifications as needed in January. From there, the first required deliverable in the competition is due on February 20th, 2024. That is the semifinal submission deliverable, and that will be immediately followed by a virtual semifinal competition event. That semifinal competition event is February 23rd to 24th, 2024. And all teams who submit a semifinal submission deliverable will be eligible to present their projects to juries during that semifinal competition event, and will have the opportunity to be selected as one of the 40 finalist teams in the 2024 Design Challenge. So we'll end that semifinal competition event, select finalists for the Design Challenge, and then from there, if your team was not selected as a finalist team, you can continue your competition participation as an exhibition team. If you do choose to continue your participation in that way, we'll expect a letter of intent on February 29th submitted by your team, which really just outlines we plan to continue participation as an exhibition team and finish off the project. So we'll expect that from all exhibition teams immediately following the semifinal competition event in February. And then the final required deliverable due in the competition will be April 2nd. That is the final submission deliverable, and it is the real crux of the Design Challenge project. And it includes up to a 60-page design narrative with contest narratives, technical construction, documentation, renderings of your team's project. So that is the real meat of the Design Challenge project that will be due on April 2nd. And then finally, in April 2024, we have the conclusion of the Design Challenge competition at the Solar Decathlon competition event. That will be a hybrid event held April 19th to 21st. And so students can participate virtually or in person at an event at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado. And at that competition event, we will select division winners as well as one grand winner for the entire competition. So this timeline just helps you kind of get an understanding of when things will happen, when deliverables will be due, as well as our really exciting 2 events that we have as part of the Design Challenge competition. And you can move on to the next slide. And Allie, I'll actually let you take it away and talk through events with everyone.
Thanks, Taylor. Hi, everyone. I'm Allie, and I'm on the organizer team, and I would like to talk to you guys about the 2 events that Taylor just went over out of the competition timeline. So the first event that we have is the semifinal competition event. As Taylor mentioned, this is after your semifinal submissions are due and will be held virtually February 23rd and 24th of this upcoming year. We invite all teams to participate in this after submitting their semifinal submission. It is a completely virtual event so that all teams can participate, make it accessible to everybody and every member of your team. So the teams will be presenting live to juries in each division that they submit in. And these jurors will give each team industry feedback so early on in the design process so that they can take the feedback and make their design stronger. 40 finalist teams will be selected in this time frame. This will be up to 10 in each division. Even if a team is not a finalist after this point in the competition, they are welcome to submit an exhibition and letter of intent and become an exhibition team, where they are still welcome to participate in the final event as exhibition teams. And we encourage you to present during your competition, during your division, as well as stay for other teams' presentations and really learn and connect with other teams across the Design Challenge and in your division specifically. And next is the competition event. Like Taylor said, it is April 19th to 21st here at NREL's campus, which is in Golden, Colorado. The teams are welcome to compete virtually and in person, so it is a hybrid event. We love to see the teams competing in person. We appreciate you traveling out to Golden, Colorado and also offering a virtual option for those who can't make it out to Colorado with us. And during this competition event, you will be presenting your final presentations, your final projects, and the jurors will select the division finalists as well as one overall grand winner. And during this competition event, not only are you presenting your projects, but you're also having the opportunity to network with students, faculty, and professionals from your industry and across the world, as well as tour the research facility that we have here at NREL as a national lab for the Department of Energy, and a lot more really fun events that the organizer team puts together for you. We're really excited to have you on campus. We're excited to have you participate in the design challenge with us. And with that, the semifinal and final competition events are very exciting. They're very valuable parts of the project. Not only are you designing a building, but you're also getting to present it and to network with industry professionals and your peers. And we really appreciate your experience here and your participation in the design challenge. And we hope to see you at the events.
Awesome. Thank you, Allie. Great. So we also wanted to cover two key focus areas for this year's design challenge rules. The first is section 3.2 called project selection for carbon impact. This is a new section of the rules that outlines the requirement that teams explore both the embodied and operational carbon impact of their design, as well as the expectation that they justify their team's choice of either a retrofit or new construction project to jurors. So through this section, we really encourage teams to explore and analyze both quantitatively and qualitatively the carbon impact and the emissions associated with their design, ranging from raw material sourcing and supply to end of life for the building, deconstruction and demolition. So again, the jurors will be looking really closely at this and looking closely at your team's justification of why you chose either a retrofit or new construction project and why that was the best selection for your target market, your client, your needs, and why, or rather why the emissions associated with that building and your team's exploration of those emissions through the design project. So that's one section to pay attention to in the rules, section 3.2, again, the project selection for carbon impact. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The next section that we wanted to call attention to is section 3.3, project selection for community impact. This section outlines the expectation that teams assess how their design supports the priorities of the target occupant, as well as the local community for that building, as well as an encouragement for teams to explore zero energy solutions for buildings that benefit underserved populations. And obviously that is a little bit context and community specific, how a building would benefit underserved populations. So in this section, we included a definition for what we call equity eligible buildings to help teams navigate that project selection of what a building might look like that would benefit an underserved population. So for equity eligible buildings, they can be defined as buildings located within disadvantaged communities or affordable housing and housing occupied by low-income residents, or underserved commercial, nonprofit, and public buildings, or some combination of those characteristics. For this section, this is not a requirement in the competition, so your team can still compete if you have a building in mind that doesn't necessarily fall under that definition of equity eligible buildings. But similar to section 3.2, the jurors will be looking really closely at these two elements as they evaluate your project in the competition. And you can go to the next slide. Okay, for the next part of the webinar, we're going to cover other elements of the competition experience and what you can expect as a solar decathlete. Next slide, please. The first element of this is the Building Science Education Series. So this is a series of short video modules and quizzes that covers topics ranging from zero energy design principles, HVAC design, lighting and plug loads. That's really intended to give participants a strong foundation for building science, as well as the fundamentals of zero energy building design. And part of the intent with the building science education series is that any student, no matter your degree program or major or other resources available to you, could complete the building science education series and have that foundation to successfully compete in the design challenge. As such, this is actually a requirement for all students to complete this building science education series or receive an equivalency waiver from their faculty advisor that states they've received these knowledge and skills through equivalent coursework or curriculum. So again, all students will be either required to complete this building science education series or have that equivalency waiver from their faculty, and that will be expected to be complete by February 2024. One other thing to mention here is that this series is currently open and available to students. If you want to get started early, we definitely encourage that. And there are instructions on how to access the Building Science Education series included under the quick links on the submission site. So you can find those instructions there. And next slide. Next up, we have our mentor program. The Solar Decathlon mentor program pairs alumni of any Solar Decathlon competition ranging back to 2002 with current participating teams in the design challenge. And these mentors will really help your team by providing technical and non-technical feedback on your project direction, your deliverables in the competition. And not only that, but they have this really rich wisdom of their competition experience as a previous Solar Decathlete that they'll be able to share with your team. On top of that, our mentors are amazing. They are super impressive industry professionals that can be found all across the buildings industry and can really share that industry experience and perspective with your team to help your project and help you as you work through the design process. For the mentor program, there is a sign up that is included currently on the team registration form on the submission site. So if your team wants to sign up to be paired with a mentor, you can do so by the team registration deadline on October 18th as well. And next slide. And then we have industry engagement. So as part of the design challenge, this is not a requirement, but the organizers definitely encourage all teams to engage with industry where possible. And most of our successful teams in the design challenge have engaged industry at some point in their project. There are a few different ways that industry engagement can manifest itself in a design challenge project. One way is through industry partnerships, and industry partners are individual professionals or organizations who provide support, donations, and guidance to teams. There's not necessarily a specific requirement of exactly how this looks in the design challenge, but we've seen teams partner with a local architect or architecture firm. We've seen teams partner with local builders in their community to really get that real world perspective and experience on the design challenge project. Another way that this, or another form of industry engagement, is called design partners. And again, these are individual professionals or organizations, but these professionals or organizations have a planned major retrofit or new construction project in their building portfolio and will actually work with your team to develop a zero energy design option for that building. So design partners serve as a sort of client to the design challenge team and will work with you through their budget and other parameters for the design that your team can get that real world, again, perspective on a design project and actually be able to work with a sort of real world client on your design. And you can go to the next slide. Okay, and then we would be remiss if we didn't mention the why of the design challenge. And Of course, we've covered some of these points already today, but the design challenge is a really special and unique experience for students that builds on their existing coursework or curriculum at their school. So the first part that we already mentioned on this why of the design challenge is building science education. And another point that we didn't mention here is that students in the design challenge will have access to industry relevant tools that not only help them complete a successful design project, but also give them exposure to tools that they will encounter when they are working in industry. So we provide software that helps with life cycle analysis, costing analysis, to really give them exposure to what they might encounter in an internship or a job in the future. From there, we talked about real world design experience, and another point to mention here is that we encourage you to work in an interdisciplinary team with students from other majors, other degree programs, and even other schools to bring in those different perspectives as you are creating your design. From there, of course, students gain these career-ready skills in zero energy design. And not only that, but they will get feedback and networking opportunities with industry professionals through our semifinal competition and final competition event, like Ali mentioned. So we will have the best of the best in the buildings industry as jurors for the design challenge, who will not only offer the students guidance and feedback on their design process, but also it's a really rich networking opportunity for students to be able to meet those professionals, hear their perspectives, and of course, stay in touch. And then from there, you're joining a global Solar Decathlon alumni community of over 25,000 student and faculty competitors that range back to the earlier Solar Decathlon competitions in 2002. So you're going to have access to this global community of professionals who can help build your network and help you explore career pathways in the buildings industry. You can go to the next slide. And then more of the why of the design challenge. We have a few testimonials from our 2023 design challenge here from students and faculty. But again, our aim as the Solar Decathlon organizer team is to help complement and supplement what students get through typical coursework and go above and beyond with those professional development opportunities and real world design skills that they can take into their careers. And then next slide. And then another plug for team registration. Please make sure that you submit your team registration by October 18th at 5 o'clock Eastern time. You can complete your team registration on the submission site. I believe Rachel already put that link in the chat. And it's worth mentioning, you'll register as a user on that submission site, and you can complete parts of team registration and return to it. So don't feel like you have to complete all that registration all at once. And we also wanted to mention for the team registration, it's okay to not have every single detail for your team or your project finalized by that October 18th deadline, but we do need to see your intent to participate in the competition as the team registration, or as a completed team registration rather submitted on October 18th at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And then you can go to the next slide. Okay, and then we'll end before we get into the Q&A period here. We're going to end with one final poll, and this is a plug-in, of course, to submit your team registration, but you can respond to this poll again using the QR code, the web URL at the top there, or a text message. And the question is, have you started your team registration? And we won't hold you to this answer. Okay, I see a 50-50 split between, oh, maybe a few more not yet. A few people have started. That's great. And a few people intend to start today, which we love to hear. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for responding to that. And again, team registration due by October 18th. And if you have any questions about that team registration or registering as a user on the submission site, you can always contact the organizer team at sddesign@nrel.gov, and we are happy to help with that. With that, Allie, I think we can just go back to the slides, and then I would love to open up for questions. Please feel free to come on camera, come off mute, and ask your questions. We are here to support. Hi, Kyle. I see your hand up. Please feel free to ask a question.
Hi there. Are we allowed to have sponsors listed anywhere on our projects or no?
Yes. So like we talked about in that industry engagement section, if your team is working with a particular organization or your university has that relationship with that organization, you can mention that in your design challenge deliverables.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. William, I see your hand up. Please feel free.
I saw that we needed to access courses through Canva. How are we able to access them?
Yes, so I believe you're referring to the Building Science Education series will be hosted on Canvas this year, which is an online learning management platform. To access the instructions for the Building Science Education series and how to log into Canvas, you can first register as a user on the submission site. That will be the solardecathlon.skill.com URL that Rachel put in the chat. And then once you register as a user on that submission site, you'll see instructions to access the Building Science Education series included under the quick links on the submission site there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from the audience? Or any other questions in the chat that I missed? I don't see anything right now.
Could you go back to the Decathlon slide? I just want to see the new. So I didn't get to catch the new ones that were added, the new competitions that were added.
Yes, I think, yeah, that's the slide I was going to. Were you referring to this slide here with the divisions and the 10 contests?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you. And I see a question in the chat, will these slides be available to us somewhere? So we won't make the slides specifically available, but we will have the recording of this webinar posted to YouTube, and we will make that link available so anyone can check out the content that we covered today. Any other questions? Oh, I see one from Lyria in the chat. The question is, the education building division is restricted to K-12, correct? No higher ed allowed. And Lyria, if you had any other context for that, otherwise I can address that question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just, you've changed the actual competitions. There used to be 6, right? Or maybe 7. And so office building is gone. And that used to be where higher ed education buildings were. And so I just want to check and make sure that education, the category, I read the rules, but it says K-12, but I want to confirm.
Yes, thank you for that question. And so we do have 4 divisions for the 2024 Design Challenge, what you see here. And in terms of the division requirements, I think we've kind of mentioned this before, but the students will not be disqualified in the competition if they don't perfectly meet every division requirement, but they are included there so that teams can be evaluated against each other. And so I would say if your selected building is not fitting perfectly into a design challenge division definition. First thing is to email us with more details on what you're thinking. And the second is to provide a rationale or justification as to why it's not perfectly fitting into the division requirements to the jurors who can then assess that. But really, we try to encourage students to fit into these division requirements so that we can evaluate teams more fairly against each other.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Taylor. I have a sort of background question, if that's all right. And I'm kind of new to this. I'm curious how you find people are able to integrate this into, into their work. Is it more as a kind of an extracurricular activity, like a club, or are people able to integrate it into coursework, like maybe through a capstone course or a variety of approaches? And in general, like how many hours per week would you say students usually work on these projects kind of in the peak period leading up to February?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I would also encourage, I see a few of our faculty from previous competition years on. I encourage you to come on camera and share your experience with how you've integrated the design challenge into your curriculum. But I would say it really depends on the school and even the program within the school. Many schools will integrate the design challenge as part of a coursework for the students or a senior capstone project or similar. And then other schools might have it as an extracurricular activity for the students as part of a club or other on-campus organizations. So it really depends on the school. And we'd love to talk more with you about specifically how to integrate it in your school and what we've seen from other approaches. But overall, the answer is it depends, but we definitely encourage that integration into curriculum where possible. And if other faculty want to share their perspectives, please feel free.
I'm happy to chime in. This is Heath Pickerel at Missouri S&T in Missouri. We've competed for many years, starting back in 2002 with the first build challenge. And it's always been part of our experiential learning here on campus. And so basically club, it's volunteer. It's always been all undergrads here. That's not to say we wouldn't like to have grad students involved. It's just never worked out that way. But gosh, I don't know if I could even put a number of hours per week. Now the design challenge is certainly different than the build challenge, but I would say our students probably spend at least once they really get into the process, 10 hours plus a week.
Yep, and again, I'll just add on to Heath's point that the design challenge parameters are obviously different, and probably the rules are your best resource in terms of the cadence of the workload associated with the competition. But there's definitely more work falling in from January to April, of course, with the semifinal and final submission deliverables due at that time. Awesome. Other questions? I see a few in the chat here. One question is there any area or level limitation for education design? I think that is maybe the same question Lyria had about the education building division. So please refer to the rules for the division requirements for education building, but you are correct that it is targeted at K through 12 level for that. I see another question in the chat here. Do we have to register for a design challenge first? And then we can go for a build challenge. So the design challenge is its own competition of the solar decathlon. And so you will register a design challenge team and compete in the design challenge competition according to the parameters outlined in the rules. So we encourage you to refer to the rules for our specific design challenge competition requirements. other questions in the chat? I see one more here. Will the teams have the option to present online during all the events of competition? If yes, would it in any way affect the team adversely? This is a great question. The answer for if you have the option to present online during all events, that answer is yes. So for our semifinal competition event in February, that is actually an all virtual event. So all students in the competition will be presenting to jurors virtually during February 23rd to 24th for finalist selection. And then at the final Solar Decathlon competition event in April 2024, that is a hybrid event, meaning students have the option to participate both virtually or in person at the National Renewable Energy Lab, where we'll be having those in-person event activities. And to the last part of your question, it's extremely important to our team that all students have a fair competition experience, whether they are participating virtually or in person. And we train and talk to our jurors about this very closely to make sure that students aren't penalized if they are presenting virtually at the final competition event. So the answer to that is no. And we know that different students and schools have different resources and abilities to travel. Virtual participation is absolutely supported and encouraged as part of the design challenge. I see one other question in the chat here. Can we take a site anywhere in the world, or do we only have to take it in the US? And I think that question, in other words, is can we pick a building that is located anywhere in the world? And the answer to that is yes. We do not set parameters on where exactly your design challenge project is located, and we encourage international teams to choose their local community context for their building if they would prefer that. Any other questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat right now.
Hi, Taylor. Great.
Hi.
When can people get started on their project?
Now, that's a great question, Rachel. So the design challenge, now that we are open, we are accepting team registrations. Teams can start work at any time. Many teams will participate over 2 semesters, and many teams will participate over just 1 semester and start their work in January. So this is best determined by your team and the way you structure competition participation at your school, but you can begin work at any time. Any other questions from the audience? I gave it the 10 seconds of silence here, but I think what we can do now is stop the recording. Allie, if you don't mind stopping that, and then our organizer team will stick around here. If folks have other questions, please feel free to stay on and we'll be here to answer those. But thank you again for joining the kickoff webinar for the 2024 Design Challenge. We are so excited to see participation from schools and teams from across the country and across the world. And yeah, please let us know if you have any questions as you start to complete your team registration and submit it by October 18th.